public session of our meeting. Everyone, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Our flag is right here today, just temporarily until our next meeting. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Is it shot brighter, Sarah?
For all.
At every meeting, we like to go over our district's mission and vision. Our mission is to create a culture of academic excellence through inclusive and innovative learning opportunities for the whole child. Our vision is to empower all learners to reach their full potential in a globally competitive world. Our first item this evening is to discuss and take a moment to remember our Sycamore legend, Coach Bud Atkiss. Coach Akis, excuse me.
That's okay.
Coach Akis, whose name proudly graces the football field at Sycamore Stadium, led our Aves as head football coach from 1953 to 1967 with an impressive record of 93, 38, 10, making him the second all-time winningest coach in our history. His leadership guided the 1964 team to an EHL championship. He also coached basketball and golf. Beyond athletics, Coach Akis dedicated decades to teaching at Sycamore High School and served as a principal at Blue Ash Elementary and at Sycamore Junior High. A charter member of the Aves Athletic Hall of Fame inducted in 1995, Coach Akis' legacy will continue to inspire generations to come. Our thoughts are with his family and all who were touched by his remarkable life. And now we'd like to take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Can I please get a motion and a second for the approval of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Dr. Steger, for your motion. Thank you, Dr. James, for your second. Mr. Bode, sorry. Mr. Bodie, please call the roll.
Sure. Sorry, Dr. Steger,
Aye.
Dr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Ballin,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Can I please get a motion and a second for the approval of the minutes?
Second.
Any changes, any questions, anything? Mr. Bodie, please call the roll.
Mr. Ballin,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Dr. James,
Sorry.
Dr. James,
Aye.
Dr. Steger,
Sorry, same.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. The next item on the agenda is public participation. Do we have any public participation, Mr. Person?
We have one. I have the paper over here. It's Miss Darby Bosley.
Okay. We have 3 minutes for public participation,
Hi, where would you like me to stand?
wherever you'd like to stand. Thank you.
All right, are you ready?
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead.
Thank you for the time, allowing me the time to speak. My name is Darby Bodie. I am on the board to Protect Ohio Children, and I represent the southern region of Ohio. I would like to bring to the board concerns from a parent in the district regarding educationally unsuitable and pervasively vulgar materials. Per Ohio Revised Code, board policy, and more specifically, the PICO ruling, school boards and administrators are responsible for supervising the education of students in their care and can remove materials that are deemed educationally unsuitable and pervasively vulgar. According to the Ohio definition of obscenity, it appears the district is pandering obscenity involving a minor, and this is a felony in the 2nd degree. According to the Licensure Code of Professional Conduct for Ohio educators, one can lose their license by violating Section 1D, committing any violation of state or federal laws, statutes, or rules, and 2B, committing an act of cruelty to children or an act of child endangerment, and D, engaging in grooming a student or minor. The book Lawn Boy by Jonathan Evison was recently found through a records request to be in the Sycamore Schools library. I'm extremely uncomfortable reading what I'm about to say. However, I think it is important to understand what we are putting in front of our children. Some of the concerns in the book, some of the lines in the book of concern are, do you want to see my buck? What's a dog gonna do? Lick peanut butter off my Why won't you admit we each other and the rest of it? I gotta admit, you're pretty brave. It takes guts to be a I couldn't do it. Dumb dude, dirty dude. I think we can all agree that this book is educationally unsuitable and pervasively vulgar. I am concerned for teachers who may knowingly distribute this and similar materials and therefore permanently lose their license, as the Ohio board currently revokes them quite regularly for infractions of improper content and violating state law. I would like to encourage the board to remove this book before they and all those responsible are held liable for pandering obscenity and lose their livelihood. I suggest a committee that will run all books in the district through ratedbooks.org. This website will list any books that are pervasively vulgar. There is a rating on a scale from 1 to 5 for inappropriateness and vulgarity, and this website lists examples of all the texts of concern in the book. If you would like more information on this, I would be glad to help, and if there's anything that I can do to kind of help set this up, I am willing to help the school district out. Thank you so much.
The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's agenda. Mr. Lewis.
Yeah, we'll start with the district strategic plan, and just want to thank all the staff members, all the community members, the board, our administrative team for the collaboration on this document, and big thank you to Sandell Consulting for being our partner in this work. So I know we have gone through this before, so I'm not going to go back through every component with you, but I think one of the things that I think was important moving forward with this strategic plan was to maintain our core pillars, which, you know, really, if you know anything about education, we always have acronyms. So we use the AVES of AVES to set up our pillars. So academic achievement, vibrant community partnerships, excellence in operations. And then we changed the S this time. It was student-centered culture and learning last time. We just wanted to focus on the student-centered culture. The learning component is right there in academic achievement. So we felt like that was better suited in the academic achievement portion. So looking at our strategic plan, we've laid out not only our objectives, but also our action steps for the board. And, you know, our team has already started really thinking about who would be the best suited individuals to lead all of these areas. And that's the important part, is that it can't be a strategic plan that just sits there and nothing happens. You know, it's great to have a strategic plan, but it's the actions that take place as a result. So pending your support and approval tonight, we will move forward with putting it into play. And that looks like a couple of different things. One would be we assign those action steps to our team members and have that all laid out with timelines of when we would accomplish or think we might accomplish these goals. Some of these goals are pretty large, so they may be continual. They may be things that we just check in on. So it might have a biannual or a quarterly check-in to make sure we're making progress. And then on top of that, we've got to communicate it. We've got to get this out. And our goal would be by mid-October, we have a nice rollout with a marketing plan and really a package that goes out to all of our community members so that they're aware of what we're working on, that we've obviously moved forward with one strategic plan. We finished that one off, and now we have a second one. I think the other component that I would love the board to consider is that I would say the last time an area of opportunity is that we had a strategic plan, but it was pretty concrete. We didn't make any changes to it and throughout the time that we worked on it. And I think a good strategic plan has to be a living, breathing document. There are going to be things that we list in here as a priority that may become a more important priority and we have to move up, or there might be things that we have to move back because they're not as important as a priority. So I would encourage us to continually review this together And I know we've set some dates that we will do that throughout this year. And we can't be scared to make changes. It's really just going to a graphic designer and having them, the same graphic designer that built it, and having them make the changes for us. That's really it. So I think it's encouraging that I think all five of you and the rest of our team, we've been in lockstep working on this. And I think we have come up with a great product that we're proud to put in front of our staff, our community, and it reflects really the input that we got from all of our stakeholders. So happy to answer any questions and happy to have any of our team members if they have anything to share.
I would agree with you that it's a living document, that it should be subject to change. You know, I think the objectives are more concrete, and I would be more opposed to just of changing the objectives versus the action steps. So I would think it would take more discussion with the board to actually look at the objectives and start to change those. But action steps on how you achieve those, I would agree, change each year.
And please know that we would never change the objectives in this document without bringing a recommendation to the board.
I do really like the check-ins with the board that you mentioned. I think that was one thing lacking in the past was discussing it in public meetings. So I do look forward to those discussions.
I really like this strategic plan. I think that to me, it just makes more, it feels like it's easy to read and I understand what you're saying. I like that the very first objective is to meet the needs of the students, because that's, to me, that should always be the top thing that we're always trying to do with academics. I know that having that the vibrant community partnerships and actually coming up with those action steps is something that has been in this community. This community has been asking us to do this for years. And I think we're continuing on that path, and it's demonstrating that. And with the actual action steps, I think that will be really good. I agree. This is good. The key for everyone here is to remember it is a working document. Yes, we should not be changing the objectives, but how we get to those objectives, the action steps should change. They may change over time, and that's fine. But I like this. I think it's clear, it's simple. There's some, maybe it's because I've been on the board for a few years now and I understand it better, but to me, it makes a lot of sense. All the things we've been working on.
I'd just like to jump in and say, yes, I agree that having the higher level rather than the you must have this as a goal makes a lot more sense. And it's probably easier to change action steps in there and be more flexible for people who work in the district. Couple of things that I think we can possibly move around a little bit just in terms of editing. I'm just wondering with like MTSS, would that be better as an action step rather than an objective? Because it seems more action step. That's one question I had. Another one was the district website set up already? Do we need to keep that in there? Or we just, hit a race on that? And then.
Dr. Steger, the only reason I would say that needs to stay in there is that was strong feedback from the community that our
Okay.
website needed an overhaul. So
But it's.
I think Mrs. Von Bright says it's never done. So,
Never done.
but that was one that the community felt very strongly about. And I can't remember a meeting with community members or PTO members that I didn't go to where it didn't come up.
You could potentially change a word instead of provide a new user-friendly, continue to provide an updated website. I think I like that, Dr. Steger, more than
Yeah.
just the word a new
New.
website, because that would be an ongoing thing, a vibrant
Or
website.
maintain our new website, because it is new and you're forming them at the same time.
Right. And another quick question I had also under excellence in operations. In the last one, the 2022 plan, we had the cyber security and technology. Do we need to add anything like under security, adding cyber security on there? Because I know that's been I don't know. That's just one of my questions. I know that was on the 2020. That was just a question I had.
I hope we will always have that,
Right.
always at
Is it
all times.
understood or?
I don't know that it
do
needs
we
to be
need
on a
to be
strategic plan,
explicit
but
for
it
the
needs to be
community?
part of everything we do.
Right,
at all
and
times.
my last point of editing would be under the S, under student, under objective one. I would just switch the two first action steps to have the positive one first, rather than having, you know, the statement about expectations, have the more positive one come before that and then have the expectations after it to set it up in a positive way.
Okay.
That's
Is
not.
everyone else agreeable to that?
Yeah, I like that one. I like.
Yeah, that works.
The, oh yeah, the communication, clear
Yeah,
behavior
just-
expectations. That's true. It kind of
Just-
starts off a little,
Positive,
that's true.
comes off better for it. Those are just some minor tweaks, I guess we could say.
Do you feel good about approving it in premise while authorizing us to make those changes?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then I just have one other question. I know you probably already said this, but I don't know if I heard it. We're gonna put this on our website
Mhm.
and then when we're gonna talk about it on our website, right? We're gonna show the things that we're working on or the things that we've done. It's our working document that will demonstrate it. We can show it even on our board docs, right?
But
I'm not sure if
I
it
would
goes on
say
board
by
docs or website.
by mid-October, I would say it'll probably live more on the website, less on board docs,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
unless you're looking for a board meeting, you wouldn't. Now it'll live on board docs when we are talking about it at the
Yeah, I don't think it should live on board docs, just the community's not gonna know where to look, right? It should be
Yeah.
right
Okay.
front and center on our
Where you can
website.
Find
Yep.
it.
That's fine. I just
agree.
want to make sure it's somewhere where the community can see it so that when they ask us, we can direct them to that location.
There's a strategic plan page already on the site under About Us, and so that'll just be, right now, it just has the culture and climate survey from last year, but it'll have all this content on it.
Great. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and ask for a motion and a second for the approval of the district strategic plan.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. James, for your motion. Thank you, Mr. Harris, for your second. Mr. Burson, can you please call the roll?
Dr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Dr. Steger,
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. The next item on the agenda is a discussion of naming facilities. Mr. Lewis.
Yeah, and I just use that's the language under board policy FF. That's why I put that on there, but last time we had a discussion and I brought to you just a discussion around the naming of a press box in honor of Jeff Elkus, who was a alumni that passed away recently. And one of the questions that you asked during our dialogue was, what was the impact? And thank you to Steve, Mr. Emhoff, for sending us that impact, because unless you know the story or unless you were around when Mr. Elkus was around, you wouldn't know the impact. So I want to share a little bit of that with you and share a little bit with the community before we get into the kind of the details of the components that we need to handle for the business part of the meeting. So Jeff was diagnosed at age 5 with muscular dystrophy, and it's a debilitating disease. And obviously we all have heard of that before, but he was confined to a wheelchair beginning at age 9. But during that time, he became the first participant in a clinical trial for a steroid that would slow the progression of the disease. That study was subsequently conducted throughout the world, and now newly diagnosed patients are prescribed the same medication to slow that. So Jeff was a leader in that because he was never scared to take on those challenges. Jeff lived about twice the expected lifespan of a patient, passed away at age 39 on June 11, 2023. Because of his longevity, he was invited to represent the U.S. as a patient panelist in the International Neuromuscular Disease Conference in Geneva, Switzerland. Renowned physicians proclaimed that Jeff was a trailblazer and helped them learn how to treat patients both medically and spiritually. In addition, Jeff received the MDA's Personal Achievement Award for the city and the state. So I picked up some things that, I just learned about Jeff, not only reading it, but hearing some of the stories. Jeff had a saying, if you can't stand up, stand out. And I think Jeff often stood out during his time at Sycamore High School. He was a summa cum laude graduate of Sycamore High School, a member of National Honor Society. Although he loved sports, he was not able to physically participate. However, beginning in his freshman year at Sycamore High School, he was given an opportunity to be a part of sports teams, serving as the PA announcer for basketball, boys basketball, and a sideline reporter for varsity football home games. He was the guest announcer for boys volleyball and girls softball. He became known as the voice of the A's. And there's lots of other stories, but I think some important components. Jeff's family and friends raised $50,000. About 200 different individuals contributed, and the donations ranged anywhere from $40 to $10,000. Maybe not all of you know this, but one of the donors was Jeff's hero. I think one of his heroes, because I think there could be a number of people that would qualify in that, but Dick Vitale was his broadcasting hero, and Dick Vitale and his wife donated to the Press Box campaign, which is pretty impressive. So, and then I picked up a couple of things that tells us, it's almost like Jeff is speaking to us, through what he put in his Hall of Fame speech. He quoted John Wooden, who said, "Do not let what you cannot do interfere with what you can do." And he said, his hero, Dick Vitale, which we already talked about the donation, but on his senior night, not unusual for Coach Imhoff to figure out a way to make something happen, got him a taped message, personal message from Dick Vitale for his senior night. And then he left us with a quote at the end of his Hall of Fame speech from Tommy Lasorda. "The difference between the impossible and the possible lies in a man's determination." So thank you for indulging me and let me talk a little bit about Jeff, because I think it's important. The man and the alumni that you're considering naming a facility after. So our board policy FF, talks about that the board has to consider the naming of structures, auditoriums, athletic surfaces, or facilities. Naming of any portion of a facility after an individual, family, corporation, others is subject to board approval in accordance with established naming policies and procedures. For purposes of naming facilities for individuals, a significant contribution is an act or an action which profoundly impacted the school community. Significant contribution extends far beyond the ordinary to exceptional and remarkable. And just listening to Jeff's story, I think we could all agree his story qualifies as pretty remarkable. Individuals or groups may apply to the board to name a facility in honor of an individual who has a significant contribution to the district or community for a specific event. And the superintendent will oversee the naming process, including the development of a process and consider proposals. We did receive a proposal. The original commitment was to name the baseball press box after Mr. Elkis, which is great. And we want to maintain that original commitment. The problem is we don't have a baseball press box right now because obviously we are still fundraising for that facility. So my recommendation to the board would be a couple of prongs, a little multi-prong approach here, which would be one, we do have the multi-purpose stadium press box that is currently there. I would recommend two things for that press box. One, we consider naming the press box for Mr. Elkis for a period of time until the baseball press box is in place, and we can uphold that commitment to name that press box. I would also recommend that we memorialize Mr. Elkis in a couple of ways, which is, I think this story and the things that are on here, I think there would be something that we could capture onto a plaque and permanently put inside the press box. Because again, when you want someone's memory to live on, people have to know the story. The story has to live on. And I think just some of what we shared, that's a story that deserves living on. And then when we do build the baseball press box, not only should we prominently name it, but I would also duplicate that same plaque inside that facility as well. So that would be my recommendation. I did engage, it talks about in our policy to engage a committee of people, myself, Mr. Lovell, Mr. Zimmerly inside our district, and then our athletic department. We had these discussions, and prior to Mr. Harden's death, we had this discussion, but We've had it since then with Mr. Ovington, and I think we're all at least in alignment that this would be an appropriate way to recognize Mr. Elkis. So happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I would, I was impressed. I did not know Jeff's story until Mr. Imhoff sent it to us. So thank you, Mr. Imhoff. I would challenge you on the memorializing. A plaque inside, I think, is good, but not many people go inside a press box. So is there a way we can do something where more people, could you paint his name on the outside of it? Or could you put a plaque somewhere else where people walking by would see it in addition to inside? But your average public is not going to go inside a press box.
And it might be a great opportunity to do something. I don't know I have to see what their plan is for the Athletic Hall of Fame. I know I think they were talking about digitizing it. One of the things that I think would be valuable is the reason I thought about the inside is I would love to see us engage more students back into those, just like Jeff did. I would like to see more students doing the announcing of games and doing those types of things for our district. So my thought process was that they learned the legacy that was left by Jeff, but
I think that would be great too.
That's a great suggestion to look for another prominent place that more people would see the story.
But I would extend also what Mr. Ballant is saying, and maybe, I think I did talk to Mr. Lewis on the phone about this also. It's like maybe also having some kind of an honor wall inside so that his name can be, I agree that something on the outside that the public would know, but maybe some kind of an honor wall on the inside for students or coaches or whoever was announcing the impact on the press or communications during games would be another way to extend that. So it could be on the inside and on the outside at the same time.
Point of clarification, Mr. Lewis, are you suggesting that it be, that we first start with the football stadium press box? Is that the multi-purpose? Thank you. And then move it, or in addition to it, we would?
To then move it to the original movement.
It would be temporary.
So the temporary location until the press.
permanent
box could
location.
be. All
The
right.
original commitment was for the baseball
Mhm.
stadium press box. Yeah.
I would just like to say, and I know Coach Hoff is here too, and he would probably say the same thing. I had Jeff. Jeff was one of my students. I had Jeff in 8th grade. He was an extraordinary person. This goes really, in my mind, beyond being a student, but being an extraordinary individual that represented our school district, represented our athletes, and represented this community. So I think this would be an honor that's well due, Jeff. I just think it's something that needs to happen, so.
Well, having said that, would someone like to motion and second?
I have another
for
question,
this?
just on the timing of it. I'm still leery of permanent names. Because that multi-use stadium and that baseball field's going to be there a long time. Not that if we put 10 years or 20 years, that it would have to change after 20 years. I just, to tie something down permanently, is just a question that I have.
In this instance, it wouldn't be, the permanent part would be when the baseball, right?
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Sorry. The permanent would be for the baseball press box. This would be temporary in the multi-use stadium. And then once the press box for the baseball, there would be, but you're saying that concerns you, the permanent of the baseball.
And I think to ease that concern, there could be ways that we could think of to honor other prominent athletes and prominent people developing in those different programs. I'd hate to let this opportunity go because that's something.
Oh, I don't want this opportunity.
No, but
I'm 100% supportive of it.
I agree with what you're saying. Though. I think we need to start thinking of ways though that we can also do those kinds of things. We're kind of not tying our hands that give us a little more leeway.
Mr. M, did we have a request to Mr. Imhoff?
This is just an item on the agenda, so.
Oh, okay, that's gonna come.
I didn't know if you wanted to give him an opportunity.
Mr. Imhoff, would you like to speak?
I didn't know if I was supposed to do it after the motion. I'd be glad to do it now.
I think you should do it now. You have 3 minutes, okay?
That's my next question. I was gonna ask if anyone in the audience was going to speak on this too, because if they weren't, my speech lasts 6 minutes and 37 seconds. I was gonna ask I want to be respectful of your time,
Okay,
but I also.
yeah, we're gonna,
We can allow it. you can make a motion, Sarah,
Okay.
to extend.
okay,
I think this would be on purpose.
Pretty
okay,
important.
It could have been a little shorter because Mr.
Let's
Lewis.
steal some of your.
A little bit. I really went, I'm giving this out because just to have it, it might have a few additional things about Jeff. I want to
thank you.
pass it out.
Okay. We're gonna allow it
Thank you.
this one time because you are an incredible human being in our district that we are gonna let that happen. Everyone's an incredible human being, but you get to be the one today.
Thank you so much. My name is Stephen Hall. My wife and I own a house at 10520 Road. We're in the district. I was hoping the recommendation from Mr. Lewis and his committee would be a little different. I wouldn't have to be here tonight. My goal in speaking to give the board additional information concerning the Jeff Elkins press box naming rights. I did watch the recording of the August 6th board meeting, and I feel compelled to address some of the discussion that was made at that time. When the Always Aviator campaign started a few years ago, I was asked to chair the baseball softball effort. As the chair of this fundraising effort, I was aware of various naming right opportunities, most of which are listed on this document that was given to members of our Always Aviator campaign on November 9th, 2022. When Jeff Elkins passed in June of 2023, I felt his story needed to be told and remembered at Sycamore. Since he had been the voice of the Aviators and had also distinguished himself working in the press box at the University of Cincinnati, I thought a great way to honor his memory would be to have the press box on the new baseball field named after him. I approached Jeff's parents with the idea and they approved, but this was my idea. It wasn't a group of people just got that and randomly came up with an amount or anything like that that we could raise. I reached out to Sycamore alumni who were at the high school while Jeff was a student, and his parents reached out to Jeff's friends and family. The goal was to raise $50,000 because that was the figure that was given to be my Mr. Hart to secure the naming rights for the baseball press box. Donors were told that if $50,000 was raised, the naming rights would be secured. I did not mention a time limit on the rights, as no time limit was mentioned to me. I believe that, like me, the donors figured the press box would be named for Jeff permanently. It was mentioned at the last board meeting that $50,000 didn't seem like enough for multi-use stadium press box rights, but it did seem appropriate for the less visible baseball field. When Nancy and Steve Elkins learned that there would be no baseball press box for the 2025 season, they asked if there might be another way to honor Jeff. I suggested, it was me that suggested the multi-purpose stadium press box. They agreed that this would be a good idea, so the proposal was made to Mr. Lewis. He informed me that there might be a time limit on this, since there have been time limits on other things like Mr. Seeger and the soccer lacrosse stadium agreement for 10 years. He suggested possibly naming the multi-use stadium press box after Jeff for 5 years, then switching it to baseball press box. Nancy, Steve, and I did not like that option for a couple of reasons. First, I hate to say this, who knows whether there will be a baseball press box in 5 years. Second, most donors donated last August. So even if the baseball team plays the 2026 season on that field, that would be 2.5 years these donors have waited to see their donations put to use. It was also mentioned at the last board meeting that according to board policy, and I quote, Mr. Lewis just read some of this too, so sorry. For purposes of naming facilities for individuals, a significant contribution is an act or action which profoundly impacted the school community. Significant contribution extends far beyond the ordinary to exceptional and remarkable. I believe that the document I just gave you shows that Jeff Elkins' entire life profoundly impacted the school community and was in both its quality and length exceptional and remarkable, and that he deserves to have his name on the multi-use stadium press box permanently based on that alone. This supports another idea expressed at the last board meeting, that naming rights do not have to be tied to a donation, a view that I wholeheartedly agree with. Adding to that, the fact that the $50,000 asking price was reached, and you have 2 reasons to permanently name the multi-use stadium press box the Jeff Elkins press box. More individual donors gave to this cause than any other in the Always Aviator campaign, including the Livingston family, who donated $10,000. Mitchell Livingston, Vice President of Student Affairs and Chief Diversity Officer at the University of Cincinnati, while Jeff was a Bearcat, recognized what an inspirational young man Jeff was. Mr. Lewis told you about Dick Vitale and his wife contributing to the press box. I cannot imagine telling them and almost 200 other donors that they have to wait another year and a half minimum to see Jeff recognized, and then a temporary sign will have to do in the interim, or a plaque on the inside. I would like to know what happens when a time limit runs out on naming rights. Will Mr. Seeger's name be removed from the soccer lacrosse stadium, or will it just be announced that the naming rights are again available? It was also mentioned at the board meeting, that there is a hesitancy to make any funds or make any naming rights permanent, as that eliminates an opportunity to raise funds through them in the future. I believe the soccer lacrosse stadium should always be named for Mr. Seeger, not just for his very generous donation, but because he gave 16 years of his time and effort to the natatorium project. He deserves that recognition and more. Facilities that have been permanently named include the Bud Akis Alumni Field, the Ted Matula Gregory Center, Dan Hinkey Field, the Seeger Natatorium, and the Ann Van Kirk Early Childhood Wing at Sims. Have any fundraising opportunities been missed because they are permanent? This same document I have has a whole list of naming rights that have not been pursued. So there are still ways to recognize people. At the August 6th board meeting, it was also mentioned, and rightfully so, that the board should follow board policy regarding naming rights. This sheet I was given in November 2022 also lists 4 lanes in the new natatorium being sold for $10,000 each, and 9 lockers in the field house of the multi-use stadium being sold for $5,000 each. I'm assuming these are for naming rights and not the lanes and lockers themselves. Was a proposal made and a recommendation made by a committee? Did the board approve those naming rights, or are these projects still in limbo? How will naming rights that involve monetary contributions be handled in the future? There are multiple naming opportunities still available, and I hate to see the process play out the way it has for the donors to the Jeff Elkins press box. As was also mentioned at that last board meeting, this process seems backwards. As I said, my goal in speaking tonight is to give additional information to the board on this matter. While I'm sure that Mr. Lewis and his committee, Mr. Lovell, Mr. Zimmerly, Mr. Overton, carefully considered the proposal, making their recommendation, I can't help but believe that had they had this additional information, or if someone who knew Jeff had been on that committee, the recommendation would have been, as I think our community would want, a permanent Jeff Elkins press box at the multi-use stadium. I would hope that the board would consider amending their motion, or once it's made, changing it to that. Jeff always had another saying, his favorite saying was, "You gotta believe." And I gotta believe the right thing to do is to put this sign on the multi-use stadium press box on the outside where people can see it. I would add that if needed, Nancy and Steve Elkins would be happy to pay the $2,500 cost of this signage. I thank the board for listening. I hope it didn't take too long. I'd be glad to answer any questions about this topic if you have any.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to make a motion to approve the Jeff Elkis press box at the multi-use stadium. Can I get a second?
Second.
So let me just ask a question on the motion. Is that then to transfer to baseball, or are you making a motion to permanently name the multi-use stadium
Press
press
box.
box? And
Permanently.
never to transfer to baseball?
Permanently. Yep, that's my motion. That's the second I just got.
So I'm gonna ask Mr. Imhoff a question then. Is that the wish of the family to permanently name only the multi-use stadium?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Burson, does anyone want to make a statement or ask a question?
It was Mr. Harris on the second, correct?
Yes, I was the one who motioned, Mr. Harris.
This is better than.
So first is this the vote, or is this just the motion to, well, can you call the roll for this?
Yep.
This is the motion to actually
Actually name,
to name it.
Mrs. Bitter,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Ballant,
Aye.
Dr. James,
Aye.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
Thank you.
Steve, thank you for all your work on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Imhoff.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being here today. It's gonna be, we're gonna put that sign up
Sign up.
and we're looking forward to it.
Thank you.
And we'd like to say thank you to his parents also.
Thank you. Can I please get a motion and a second for the approval of an agreement with the University of Cincinnati?
So moved.
Second,
Thank you, Mr. Ballant, for your motion. Thank you, Dr. Steger, for your second. Any questions? Nope. Mr. Burson, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Ballard,
Aye.
Dr. Steger,
aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Can I please get a motion and a second for change order Pinnacle Paving and Sealing LLC?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. James, for your motion. Thank you, Mr. Harris, for your second. Mr. Burson, can you please call the roll?
Dr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Ballard,
Aye.
Dr. Steger,
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Can I please get a motion and a second for change order Guardian Construction?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballant, for your motion. Thank you, Dr. James, for your second. Mr. Burson, please call the roll.
Mr. Ballard,
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Dr. Steger,
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Can I please get a motion and a second for the temporary policy approval?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballant, for your motion, and thank you, Dr. Steger, for your second.
If you'd like me to speak very briefly about this.
Sure.
Just wanted to give you clarity around this. So based on policy, we typically have to do a first read, then a second read of any policy. These three policies are pretty unique because the changes that we brought forward to you are just what I would consider clerical in nature. One of the policies had our former assistant superintendent listed, Kelly Wegner. We needed to update it to Ms. Lawson. My title has changed as well. And so we wanted to get ahead of this and get it to the board and get it done. The reason it's temporary is because that's how the policy is written. We temporarily change it, and then we'll come back at the next meeting, and then we'll ask for full approval for the policies.
Thank you for that explanation. Appreciate it. Mr. Burson, can you please call the roll?
Dr. Steger,
Aye.
Mr. Ballard,
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Dr. James.
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. Mr. Lewis, other?
Yeah, just a few items. Shout out Mrs. Tompkins back there. She was part of a national radio broadcast talking about the science of reading on our behalf. So kudos to Mrs. Tompkins because I think it was an awesome experience. She really enjoyed it. And I can think of no better expert to talk about the science of reading and, you know, all the components that we're dealing with within Sycamore. And that's what they wanted, was a real practitioner talking about what does this mean for your school district. So we will get that recording to you. I think we did get a hold of it. So we will get that recording to you so you can take a listen. Our Aves Choir will be performing with Foreigner. I know that you are aware of it. I had this on my list before it became a big story on WCPO, but we will be performing with Foreigner. I didn't know it was the third time.
Yeah.
The third time. So I will be there. I will not be performing with Foreigner. I'll just be standing off on the side with our choir, and Mrs. Lawson will be joining me. So group of high school students, there's a group that's called the Sycamore ALP. It's the African Library Project. Their goal is to raise 5,000 books. And what they're looking for is books that would be appropriate for grades K through 8. And what they do is they collect the books, and then they also have to raise the funds to ship them to Africa. 1,000 books will outfit one library for a school in Africa. So they set a goal of 5,000 books. I just met with them this week. They're very excited, and I told them that I would mention it here. So if you have basements full of books, we will accept them. They want gently used books. And we'll have a couple of collection opportunities, but they're going to do a big push. I think it's January 14th through the 27th, but I told them homecoming week's a great week to get people engaged. And then
Did you mean September?
no,
Did you say January?
January.
So that's
their
when
big push.
that's when they're gonna push?
Because they're gonna ship them out in March.
Oh, I see. Got it.
But I think they're gonna exceed the 5,000 really quickly.
Yeah.
but they're motivated young people. They had a great business plan of how they were going to do it. It was fun to watch these students present their plan to me. So,
And these are.
oh, and I
middle school,
told them
high school?
business and community partnership breakfast is another great opportunity. We can ask everybody to bring a book. So.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah. And then, one of the last couple of things, there is a panel presentation on suicide, signs, treatment, and survivors at the Church of the Savior. It's being put on by the city of Montgomery. The reason I mentioned it is one of our former students will be participating in the panel. And he's one of my all-time favorite students, Grant Darbyshire, who's a resident of Montgomery, graduated summa cum laude from Sycamore High School with honors, and he's at University of Kentucky as a walk-on basketball player. He is going to share his personal story of his own suicide attempt and survival. Sorry, I get a little choked up because I've known Grant for a long time. I had no idea about this. So, you know, I'm going to be there to support him. He's a phenomenal young man, and I'm glad that he survived and did not have that happen. So, and then the last thing to bring us back to a brighter topic, if you look on the screen, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Jeff Schmidt, he is the art teacher at Blue Ash Elementary. This is not part of the required curriculum. He does not have to make paper mache airplanes. He just really enjoys it. So he decided to, and it turns into a project for the class, but he's done this in his spare time. He's built this plane, and when it's finished, and if you scroll down a little bit further, Mr. Long, there's another picture. The kids cut out their artwork in little patches, and they put it all over the plane. So their artwork is on the plane, and then it's going to hang in the cafeteria at Blue Ash Elementary. So again, that's just an example of our staff goes above and beyond to find meaningful, engaging, interesting activities. And I told him, like, it's amazing that you do this, because I can only imagine how excited the kids are to engage in this art project. So kudos to Mr. Schmidt and the rest of our art teaching staff, and really our entire staff, for always trying to find creative ways to do that. So that is all I have for this evening.
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
I just wanted to give a shout out to everyone, administrators, faculty, staff members, for an amazing beginning to the school year. And the open houses that I attended were very lively. So it was great to see everyone coming back in. So thank you to everyone for that.
Most definitely.
Thank you. Okay, our next item is personnel consent agenda. Can I please get a motion and a second? Personnel.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballin, for your motion. Thank you, Dr. James, for your second. Excuse me. Mr. Burson, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Ballard,
Aye.
Dr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Dr. Steger,
Aye.
Mrs. Biller.
Aye. Next item is the treasurer's agenda. Can I please get a motion and a second to accept donations?
So move.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Harris, for your motion. Thank you, Dr. James, for your second. Mr. Burson, please call the roll.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Dr. Steger,
Aye.
Mr. Vallant,
Aye.
Dr. James,
Aye.
Mrs. Biller.
Aye. Can I please get a motion and a second for the approval of the financial report for the month ended July 31st, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballant, for your motion. Thank you, Dr. Steger, for your second. Mr. Burson, please call the roll.
Are we going to review it first?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Mr. Burson, sorry.
You're rolling.
Are you going to review it with us?
Yeah. Just first off, do want to start with any questions? Anybody have any questions? Did you get a chance to review?
I had some questions.
Okay.
If we want to pull it up on here.
Yeah, I do have. I can look.
Just a question on the tax. My first question is around the tax revenue. So I see a decline in 5.4%. Is this a timing thing? Is this a trend that we're concerned about that will continue throughout the year? Just a question on that.
And so this would be a timing thing. So every year, typically in July, we do request a tax advance from the county. And that's all it is, just the advance. We'll know more about the tax revenue once we receive the settlement, the actual settlement from the second half of calendar year.
But our anticipation is that we're not going to lose tax revenue.
Yeah, correct. The anticipation is that we're not going to lose tax revenue, and we'll know more. Usually that settlement happens in September.
Okay, so when we do September, we should have a more firm number.
Yes.
Okay, and then same with the other operating revenue?
Oh, yeah, same with other operating.
6%?
Yeah, and that's a timing issue as well as, when we looked at it, it was due to the timing of some investment income, sometimes there's investment maturities, it happens at different time during the year, and that's just really what that was related to compared to last July. So.
And then if we can go to the expenditure slide. Same two questions here, probably timing, but just want to point out two things that jump out to me. The first one is wages are up 5.6% for the month of July. Any comments on that one?
Yeah, so there's just a few comments on that. Actually, when we do look at wages from compared to June, wages are actually down. But July is not really ever a good time to compare wages. Usually it's after that first pay in September when the SEA contract will go into effect. We're starting new pay for teachers and the certified staff. One thing to note though is with that increase is that with that first pay in July, there were some classified staff that did get their step increases, or we did go to some ranges for some of our employees, and that had an effect on that as well.
And then my last question on the expenditures is just the benefit line. A 16% increase in benefits really concerns me. Is that something we expect to see continue throughout the year? Or what are your comments on benefits?
And so I would relate that, same with wages. It's going to be a timing issue that really a better picture is going to be September, a financial report for those expenditures. And one thing that we do want to point out is that part of this increase is going to be our severance payment was made in July for those retirees. And compared to last July, that severance payment was up significantly just due to maybe the number of sick days that some of the retirees had and what they received as their.
So you don't see the 16% ongoing into our next the rest of the year?
Yeah, I don't foresee that. I know that we'll know that in January, our benefit rates will increase, and I know that there's that discussion hasn't taken fully, place yet on what those new increases are going to be for our benefits.
Great, thank you.
So you're saying that September is going to be a more accurate.
Yeah, September is that.
Notice in the last page too, just the ending cash balance, July 31st, 2024. I just was looking at that last page too, but so September is where we really need to focus.
Yeah, September's when
Probably we're going to have more accurate reflection.
Yeah, and we'll have everybody on their new, salary adjustments, whether they're making the horizontal move, the step increases. And so that's something that we'll pay attention to in September.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay. Mr. Burson, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Brown,
Aye.
Dr. Steger,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Dr. James,
Aye.
Mrs. Bittler.
Aye. The next item on the discussion, we didn't get to all, is other board business, and we didn't get to have a full conversation on some of the items, but can I please get, let's first start with, we are having a discussion. I guess we're going to go ahead and do this in public session. We can do that. We need to have a discussion about compensation for our superintendent and for our treasurer. To discuss increasing the income of both so that it will align with the increases that we have given to our staff and to our administration. So we do need to have that conversation as a board. I don't know how we want to do that. But that is something that we want to let the public know that we are having these discussions and that we will do that in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to make a recommendation that the superintendent and treasurer's salary reflects that of other administrators and also the teachers. So that would be my recommendation.
And I would be supportive of that too. Yep. Does anyone have any, does anyone want to have that discussion right now? Or add any more
I would
comments?
Support both those statements there, so.
Dr. James?
Yeah, so I would think we can go ahead and make a motion.
So go ahead and.
Yeah.
Okay. So that it reflects the 3.5%, right? That we want to do. Okay.
Yep.
All right, well then I would like to, I'll just request, I would like to make a motion to approve the increase for the superintendent and treasurer's annual compensation effective August 1st, 2024 by 3.5%. Can I get a second?
Second. Go ahead.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Harris, for your second. Mr. Burson, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bitter,
Aye.
Mr. Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Ballant,
Aye.
Dr. James,
Aye.
Dr. Steger.
Aye.
Can I please get a motion and a second for the approval of the addendum to the superintendent and treasurer employment contracts?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ballant, for your motion. Thank you, Dr. James, for your second. Anyone have any comments, questions? Mr. Burson, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Ballant,
Aye.
Dr. James,
Aye.
Mr. Harris,
Aye.
Dr. Steger,
Aye.
Mrs. Bitter.
Aye. The next item on the agenda is the legislative report. Mr. Ballant, do you have anything you want to share?
Yeah, just a couple comments. So the legislature is still in recess for the summer. I will be sending out to the board this week some items that are anticipated in the next sessions of the legislature. Just some things that we can keep an eye on and that are going to be upcoming in the next few months as they come back in session.
Okay. All right, well, we'll just go ahead and move right to the next one if you want to. Or I can do it. Capital,
Oh, you want me?
yeah, I'll do it. The next item is the Capital Conference attendance. You will, hopefully everyone will have, well, you should have received an email from Mrs. Johnson requesting your presence at the Capital Conference this year. It will be on November 10th through the 12th. Please, every board member and administrator, please fill that form out and let her know if you'll be attending, and if so, how many evenings you'll be there. I want to recommend the Black Caucus dinner on the first night, which is at 7 p.m., which is a Sunday. I highly recommend it. It was excellent last year. I attended it. So please, if you're able to go up on Sunday before the conference starts, it's a great thing to attend. And we also will have an Alliance luncheon on the 11th, which is a Monday. And then Mr. Harris, you will be busy with you'll be our delegate. And Mr. Ballant, you're a backup for that. So just giving everyone a heads up on that. We also do try to have a dinner together as a group. It's a really wonderful way to learn about professional development for a board of education throughout the state of Ohio with the Ohio School Board Association. They do a great job. And this year, Mr. Lewis, if anyone from Sycamore is presenting, please tell us. So we can show up. You are, okay. Let's know. I don't know
I don't know that we know what date.
Yeah.
No, we do know what date. It's
Yeah.
it is Monday at, was it 2:00? But it's a good slot. You don't want to get like Tuesday at 8 a.m. or like the last session of the conference. So I think we're right in the middle. We're actually going to be presenting about, building, actually, it's really around the other full book. We were going to have the authors come present with us, but there were some complications with OSBA doing that, so we're just gonna do it, myself and, Mr. Lovell. Mrs. Spencer is going to be presenting with us, and, Mrs. Wagner is gonna come up and present with us. as
Oh,
well.
nice. Nice.
Because it was really about building the culture of our administrative team and how do you do that? Really, we're just gonna tell our story, so it's gonna be fun.
Great.
Excited to do that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
The next item are PTO meetings. We as a board usually try to schedule these meetings as early as possible. And I would like to, I've already reached out to the junior high and EH Green PTOs and high school. And I will, board members, send you an email to get your availability. I can tell you that the high school meets on Fridays. They already have their dates, so I'll give you those dates. They meet in person for the first half of the year, and then as they said in the winter, spring, they try to, or actually starting in January, they try to do virtual. So let's try to go to the high school this fall. I think that would be better if we can. And usually, obviously, we only send 2 people. The other junior high and EH Green this year would like to hold it a little differently. They would like to do a joint event where we go and have more of a conversation style. They want to hear, we have our presentation where we talk about the role of the board, but they would like to have more of a conversation. So I told them that that I would ask all of you if you would be willing to do that. And I'm kind of assuming that you would, but we'll set that up as well. If anyone has any comments on how you want to go about this, please go ahead and let me know.
I am not sure when the quality profile will be published, but I think that would be a great resource to take with us. So we might want to schedule around that, along with the strategic plan and the rollout.
Yeah, I think,
There would be great things to share.
I think that's a great idea, Dr. James.
Yeah.
So we're probably looking more, October, November-ish.
Okay.
But I think getting it in before, I think getting it, getting to the PTOs before the holiday break, I think is better. I know we tried that last year and got some pushback just with what they had already scheduled on the PTO meetings. So getting to their calendars earlier,
Okay.
I think would be helpful to get us in.
Okay. I will request that timing. So that means that we're all going to be pretty busy in October or November, I should say, November, December. So please be sure to check your email and let me know what days you can go. That would be great. Okay, so the next item is the rescheduling of the financial retreat. And that is a question that will ultimately be with Mrs. Logan, I think, and Mr. Lewis, but so we have any updates on that? Anyone? Mrs. Logan, are you watching?
She was working on sending you some dates and I don't remember what it was.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
That's okay. We'll get to that. So, but this is an important retreat that we want to have, obviously. So we will have to work on that, and I will also make sure that, Jenny will, or Mrs. Logan, excuse me, will send those to you. And then the other discussion is of the board, an October academic retreat. So Mr. Lewis, do you have anything on that?
I have that information.
Okay.
So apologize for the first one. The second one, we have our academic retreat, I believe, on October 14th. That sound right? Okay, thank you. Too many dates floating around. And I believe we have our normal board meeting on October 16th. So my suggestion would be that we have our retreat and that we reserve kind of the last hour and a half to handle the normal business so that we don't need to come in twice that week unless the board desires 2 board meetings that week. But from and I know most of you have experienced the October retreat, but 2 of you have not. So the academic retreat is the opportunity for our buildings to present their data to you and talk about what does it mean? What are they going to do about it? And what are some things to celebrate from? You will see the exact same set of slides from every building. It'll just be their data, their celebrations, their opportunities. We're talking about, so last year we did 2 rotations, and I will say it was a little bit exhausting for everyone because you're listening to so much information, but it's also that the buildings were doing it, we had all the board members so that you could ask your own questions in a separate group with administrators. There was a request from the administrators to, can we combine some groups? Can we have less? Can we just do 3 rotations, take a break? Do 3 rotations, take a break, do 3 more and take a break. So, we certainly have enough information that we'd love to share with you. I know the buildings want their opportunity to meet with you and share that information with you. I think we're leaning towards that, some kind of like rotation station type situation. That would be getting to hear from every building. You would get to hear from some departments and preschool. And so I would say that the other part that we learned from our team, and we've done this differently, we've changed it every year since 2 years ago, I think. And you just keep improving it and getting better, is that our colleagues wanted to hear from their colleagues. And if they're in a rotation, they don't get to hear what's going on. So we're going to be very careful and deliberate about how we set those up so that if they're interested, they can hear it, because it goes along with our strategic plan. It's that alignment that we so desperately desire. And if they're talking in alignment, then we know we're getting closer and closer to where we want to be. So I think we'll have probably 9 stations, but we're going to give you breaks in between. And my feeling is that will fill most of the morning.
Could we do like, to solve that, could we do like Mapledale does the presentation for X number of minutes and we all are listening and asking, and we have asked question and answer. That way everyone gets to hear what Mapledale has to say. Everyone gets to hear what Green. And then there's presenters. Everyone has a time slot.
And we did that in the past and it
Was it not too much?
just really brutal.
Oh, okay.
Just sitting for that
Long
long.
day.
Yeah.
sitting there, yeah.
So we thought moving and getting up.
All
and
right,
moving
yeah, you're right.
sections.
Yep, that makes
But
sense.
we can certainly continue this conversation to improve it, because our goal is to make sure it's a meaningful day for you and for us. Our goal with the afternoon, we would really like to bring in our colleague that helped us with our summer retreat with the Working Genius work. And it's really about learning about your colleagues, and we want to learn about you as well. Because it's just basically, it tells you what your areas of strength are. It tells you where your competencies are, and then it tells you where your frustrations are. And it's like, it's funny because I know a few of you have taken it. You all have the same frustrations. So it's kind of fun to learn about your colleagues. And so instead of learning about ourselves that day, the board, the district administrators, the building administrators would stay with you for the afternoon, because we want to learn about each other. We want you to learn about us and us to learn about you, because I know the couple of you that I've seen your scores, we have the same frustrations. So it's like, okay, that helps me better understand, how do I deliver information to you? And then like, if you don't have those frustrations, then it also tells me I need to deliver information to you differently. So I've learned so much about some of you already just by looking at your stuff, because I know what it means, but I want to help you understand that. And I won't be doing it. I'll just be a learner like you. Our presenter, our person that comes in, she's actually a Mapledale parent. She'll come in and teach us and help us learn about that. And that'll fill up our day, minus unless you have other items that you want us to put into that day. So we don't need an answer today. But I will say the building administrators are already working hard on, and they're already ready for it, because we tried to take that off their plate. It used to be this big anxiety of coming and presenting to the board. You guys have kind of de-armed that. They don't feel that stress anymore. They feel collaboration. They feel good about it. They feel excited to come and talk to you about what they're doing in their building. So thank you for making it that way for them, because it used to be, how many slides can I put together? What great things can I show the board? Because I want them to know all the great things. And I'm like, we can just show the great data. Like that you can talk about all those things. So I think we're in a good place with what they'll present. And they're excited to talk with you. So the other request they wanted was, how can they get more engaged with the board? So we're going to look for those opportunities.
Yeah.
One of the things that I would request of those PTO meetings is if there are opportunities that we can all go together and do different things. Because I think there are great opportunities I don't want you guys to get hit with questions that I need to be able to answer, or vice versa. So
That'd be great.
yeah, it'd be good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we
I
could
think
do
any of
that.
our team members would love to join you. So,
Well, then what we'll do is we'll organize and facilitate our timing, and then we'll check in with you to see if we can, if an administrator, we can pair an administrator with the board member or members, probably two, usually we have two board members go. So, but if it was ever that only one could go, then an administrator could still be there, so that would be helpful. I think that's a great idea.
And Mrs. Bitter, it's just always, when we do get the dates, to make sure the building principals know in advance that the board's coming is important.
Absolutely, yeah.
Please, once we get those dates, to send that schedule out to the.
Yeah, and oftentimes, well, not always, but often the principal is on, you're right, the board, the PTO president usually is on there with the principal, but not always. You're right. Yeah, sure. Okay,
And were you mentioning that possibility of moving the board meeting?
we'll come back to you with it. I want you all to consider that of whether you want to have two that week, or if you're willing to just, you might stay a little later and knock it out at that
Mhm.
juncture.
Yep.
That's certainly an option.
Yeah,
We just
the,
would have to notice it and let the community know that we're canceling the one and.
yeah. I like, the academic retreat is very fun. I like
Great.
it a lot. It's a great retreat. It is during the day, so that's what makes it a little bit of a challenge for anyone who is working. So I can see that the 14th is a Columbus Day. I'm not sure if let's further this conversation. But we're gonna have to work on, yeah.
Our students are off that day.
Yeah. Okay, all right. And then, I don't know if either of you have the day off.
I do not have
That's
the day
fine.
off.
Just get a 2-day break.
Okay,
Just happened to fall then.
No, okay.
Didn't you approve the calendar?
It's better if you have a couple of items, if you get to other and nobody else.
Yep.
does.
I have one, so other, for board other, I just want to, I sent everyone an email. We're gonna try to do our board retreat on September 14th, which is Saturday. So everyone just, board members, please tentatively mark your calendar for that day. I think that our goal is to make it so that you're not working on this, like, we're not trying to put more work on the administration by doing this, but we will be working on board goals. That's what I requested from Cheryl Ryan, but also would we like to evaluate ourselves as well? That's what I had originally told her we would do both of those things. Do we want to evaluate ourselves? But the main focus be for us to come up with some concrete goals as a working group. Does that sound
Yes.
okay to everyone, Mr. Ballant?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, so that's really,
Do you mind if I bring up a couple of things?
no, please do. And also just don't forget Business Advisory Council. If, I was gonna bring that up, but you can do that.
Mrs. Bodie, I just wanted to let you know, our staff went and checked the records request, so we wanted to clarify. I would be concerned about, we don't normally comment back to public comment, but the book that you mentioned was Lawn Boy by Jonathan Evision. That is not the book that was in our public records request. It's Lawn Boy by Gary Paulson. Gary Paulson, the book is about a 12-year-old boy in Minnesota who has been given his grandpa's old reliable lawnmower and starts a business. So I just wanted to clarify that because I would have concerns as well if it were the book you read the lines from. That would be concerning. So I appreciate you bringing it up, and I just want to make sure our community understood there was a mistake there. It was Gary Paulson is the book we have, not the other one. Yeah. Yeah. The second item, I think for transparency, I just wanted to mention, and a thank you to the board for not only, looking at compensation, but the amendment. I don't want people to think that we had something on the amendment that was hidden.
Yeah.
I think it's important for me to explain, the board has to vote for my amendments to my contract, which is like if I have a cell phone stipend and the rest of the administrators we increase their stipend, I can't increase my own. So I have to come back to the board for an increase. So I don't want the community to think there was something nefarious going on, that we were hiding something on the amendment. It was literally cell phone and I think a vacation situation that is owed to administrators that reach a plateau of 25 years, and
Yep.
I've made it to 25 years.
Yep.
And then the last thing I just wanted to say is just tonight was a great example of why we have to I come in with a recommendation. It doesn't mean the board has to accept it. And I love that we sat there and we listened and we heard from our dear friend, Mr. Imhoff, and we heard something that changed our mind. And I was right there with you that, yeah, I have to make a recommendation based on all the factors, but at the end of the day, our job is to sit here and listen to our constituents and learn and maybe have our minds changed. And we did that tonight, and that's what governing is all about. So I want to give kudos to the board for just being able to, this is all hard stuff, right? But you guys, it was an amazing job you did tonight. And I know, Mr. Imhoff and the Elkis family appreciates that work. And this isn't easy work. People don't get to see all the difficult things that go on behind the scenes. So I just wanted to point that out for community members and our team that, this is the way these things work. So thank you for your work tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for paying attention to the details and thank you for bringing items to our attention. We appreciate that too. I know that, sometimes we had a lot happen this fall, right? And in the fall, last fall and spring, excuse me, that really impacted our community very deeply. We lost, we lost a teacher, administrator, we lost students, and it's just hard. It's hard to, sometimes to take some time and then remember, oh yeah, this is something that we had worked on years ago and that's coming back up. And I don't think it was I think it's just part of the process of running a school district. There are a lot of moving parts and pieces and it's all human beings. So thank you for remembering and listening and bringing this to us and having the patience to explain it to us. And I know that that was meant with very good intent at all times. So thank you for doing that. And we appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. I think the last item was any other items that we would like to discuss, board members? No? Okay, the meeting is adjourned.